What's up, Fuse? We are so excited to be with you wherever you are. Welcome to the very first CoronaCast with Rob and Liz. We can't wait to dive in together with you.
It's going to be awesome.
Whoop, whoop.
So excited. Even though Corona's trying to get us down, we're gonna rise back up.
We're gonna be good.
We're gonna defeat this and not let it defeat us.
We've got hand sanitizer aplenty, toilet paper all over the place.
We are stacked and stocked.
Don't worry about us. We're gonna be good.
We got the bread of life and breads of bread. I meant to say loaves of bread, but it came out bread of bread.
Bread of bread.
Grace is more.
Yeah,
bread
it's
of bread.
fine.
It'll catch on. Anyway, what are we doing here?
Today, we just wanted to kind of help set a little bit of vision of what is the rest of this semester going to look like. Mm-hmm. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? How can we take advantage of some of this time and all that fun jazz?
Yeah, it's going to be good. See, I think what could happen in this season is that we just forget that Fuse was a thing.
Right.
And that we forget all the things that God has done. We forget all the places that he was taking us. And so we're trying to combat that. We're fighting against that because we know that God has started a good work and he is going to see it through to completion. And so even though we're not able to meet face to face, we're still going to engage you guys. We're still going to come up with some content, some things for you guys to still have some biblical discussion, whether that's with your family or with some friends that are living nearby, your roommates, wherever you're at. Just because Fuse can't meet on campus, Fuse can still meet because, like we say all the time at Ignite, church is not an event or a building. We are the church and we exist for the world. And so we are living that out. So we're excited that you're going to come join with us and track along with us. And so, like Rob was saying, today's going to be about why and how. How do we make this time a really fruitful season in our life, even though it feels like a really dead season in our life?
Right. Because we don't want to see this as a wasted time.
That's right.
This isn't just one giant break or something that we now get to go party at home and isolate, watch Netflix for 15 hours a day, maybe check my online class, forget about all the friends that I had.
What is school? What is life?
We want to make sure that we're actually taking this and harnessing it and using this as time that we've been given and kind of taking this awful circumstance that is coronavirus, but making it an opportunity that we can grow together and individually, but also to see what happens within our homes and to see what happens in our families. Because a lot of us, we might not be going back to families that are necessarily a Christ-centered home. And so having those conversations and getting to kind of exhibit the life that we lead at Fuse or at ECU and in college at home. Because a lot of times parents kind of miss out on all the life change that happens while at college. And there's so much that happens in that. And so being able to kind of take that lifestyle back home, I think is so important and can be something that we get to see God move in huge ways through that. And that's something that I'm really excited to get to watch as we go through this.
I think so many times we can view just our college experience in the lens of a bubble. And it's like, when I'm at school, I'm this one person. Like I go to Fuse, I participate, I'm reading my Bible, I'm doing all these things. And it's like, well, what happens when that bubble explodes? Or what happens when that bubble's taken away? Like, are the roots that you've been digging, are they deep? And are they really abiding in something? Or are you really kind of maybe realizing in this season, like the things that I was doing, I was just checking off boxes. I wasn't really cultivating a relationship with Jesus. And so this isn't a time to shame that. This is a time to speak against that and say like, this is a moment of encouragement of, okay, you have been digging these deep roots. Now let's see you live those things out. Or maybe it's a time where it's like, wow, I have a moment to stop and assess, where am I actually with God? Okay, I realized that maybe some of the things, I was just doing the things of God, but I wasn't actually spending time with God. Well, now we've taken those doing opportunities away. And so now you really get a time to just spend time with God and really dig deep roots right now.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many students I sit down with and over breaks, they'll go home. And then when they come back, they have these stories and they're frustrated because they fell back into old sins. They fell back into old things because they have cultivated such a different life at college that when they go back home, it's so easy for them to just slip right back into old ways of living, ways of thinking and doing things that they know they shouldn't be doing. But because of being surrounded by familiar, by being surrounded in a home that you grew up in, it's like, oh yeah, this is just what I do here. This is a different me than that is at college. And so we're like, no, we want to fight against that. We want to fight against letting that happen and going, all right, so how can the you that is at college be the you all the time? You that comes to Fuse on Tuesdays, how can you take that back home with you during this time away? And so we just want to help kind of create some content for you guys to watch each week. So every Tuesday, there will be new videos being put up, kind of like this, of us just talking through some different topics and going through it so that you can continue to grow and continue to be able to pour into your relationship with Jesus and not let that separation happen.
Yeah. During this whole time where we've just been kind of trying to figure out how do we do Fuse in this new context, when I was spending time with the Lord, especially this morning, he just reminded me of the verse in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, where it talks about like all the things that the enemy meant for evil, how God turned them to good. And I think that this is just such like an apropos moment to like lean into that truth that I think there's so many people that with this virus and with just the uncertainty of life, they're just kind of freaking out and they're like, I think the enemy has really amplified that fear and amplified this, where the whole time God's like, I'm not freaking out. Like, I'm in control. I've seen these moments. I've allowed them to happen. And so I'm just excited to see like what God is going to do with what the enemy tried to turn for evil. He tried to make it so that you would be in isolation. He tried to make it so that you'd be by yourself. He tried to make it so that you'd go back into your old sin habits. He tried to do all these things, but no, we're going to fight against that and say, like, what the enemy tried, we're turning for good because of God. And so I'm excited to just kind of dive into that a little bit more and maybe kind of dissect like, okay, we don't want to just fill these students up with like, okay, we give you this good idea, now go run with it. What are some practical things maybe that they can be doing in this season other than just watching these videos that can really allow them to engage not only in their walk with Christ, but even other people's walks with Christ?
Yeah, I think what you said earlier is so important, that there is this huge sense of fear that's going on right now, because there is this sense of, I mean, if you go to Walmart right now, it feels like the first 15 minutes of a zombie movie. People are wearing masks, they've got gloves, and they're just taking whole aisles of things in their cart and running. There is not a single frozen pizza left in Greenville, I am convinced.
It's really a shame.
People are just kind of, there's this fear that is there. And so first off, I think we need to kind of reset our focus and go, okay, well, who is in control?
That's right.
And who is in control of what I'm doing? Am I giving into this fear? Am I going into it? And now it's not saying to not be wise. Absolutely. Keep your hand sanitizer flowing. Like if you're coughing, like making sure that you're protecting yourself and all those things, but not letting it become this overwhelming fear first. And I think the other thing is, we always say you can't do life alone.
That's right.
And now we're kind of being forced into this situation where we could be having to be alone for a long time. And so, yes, life is so much harder to be done alone, but it doesn't mean that it comes to a stop. It doesn't mean that things just end. And so we have to kind of ask ourselves too, all right, well, so how do I grow? How do I own my own growth over these things? And how do I learn how to grow better within myself? And how do I learn how to take my relationship with Jesus into my hands and not go, okay, well, hey, at least every Tuesday I'm going to have a video, or I'm going to get to go to Fuse now. And so kind of diving in, and I think the first step of that is reevaluating, all right, well, what does my relationship with Jesus look like? In the sense of, is it a checkbox? Is it something that I'm just going through and I'm like, all right, I did Fuse, I tithed, I went to church.
I'm good.
I'm good. I'm great. JC and I, tight. And so like, asking ourselves, is that reality? Or do we actually have a relationship with him where it's, I'm going to spend time with him every day? And so I think this has been giving us a beautiful opportunity to get to have that personal relationship with Jesus. So taking time every day, whether it's in the morning, at night, whatever. I know some people, I'm one of those people that I love to do it first thing. But I also know other people that hate mornings. And so they're like, I can't read to save my life. I can't focus on anything. And so, okay, great, fine. What time of day can you consistently do that you can pour into a relationship? Because you and I have a relationship because we've spent time together. That's it. When I first got here, we didn't have a relationship because we hadn't spent time together. But now that as more time goes on, our relationship gets better and better, just like our relationship with Jesus. And so it means we have to take time out and we have to spend that individual time through it. But it's all about growth and how do we... So my question kind of for you is, how do you grow? What is a key thing for you to grow?
I think one thing that's very unique about this season is everyone's trying to find a new norm. And so because everybody is starting this new beginning, how cool that you can start a new beginning with Christ and a new beginning in your relationship. So you're trying to figure out your new schedule with school and how am I going to balance all these things online? And now I have my family instead of my roommates. How do I balance time with them? How do I balance time with my friends? And so you're looking for all these new things. And so I think the first thing is just what you were even saying, what are your priorities?
Yeah.
And then work down from there. If your priority is God first, I believe that once you get that foundational thing right, everything else falls into place. But it's when we try and be like, okay, school comes first, then my friends, then my family. Oh yeah, I got to have quiet time. That's when we start to freak out and rush. And then we end up putting it on the back burner. And before we know it, the back burner's not even in the kitchen anymore. And we're sitting in the living room and we don't even know what the kitchen looks like. And so we don't have a relationship because we're not prioritizing the things that we need to prioritize. So in this season of establishing a new norm, establish a new rhythm with God. And so maybe you're one of these people that's like, I've tried the morning thing, but it's just not working out. Okay, lunch. Have lunch with Jesus now. And where it's like you're not able to go out to a restaurant, okay, now just sit down and spend time with God when you're eating your sandwich or doing whatever you're doing. Or you realize like, dude, if I wait till the end of the day, like by the time my head hits the pillow, I don't want to spend time with God because I'm so exhausted. Okay, now you have a schedule where it's like maybe you don't have to go to an 8 a.m. class. So now you can wake up and spend that time with the Lord. And so not trying to figure out, okay, how can I shove God into this new season? But how can I construct this new season around God and allow him to speak and influence all the other parts of my life? And so I think finding and establishing that new norm will allow you to, once I've assessed, okay, where am I at with God? Now I'm establishing my new norm. Now I can figure out how all the other pieces fit in with God instead of all the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you said because it's so about fixing our focus and like, what are we going to focus on in this season? Am I going to focus on like, I've got all this free time, sick. I get to do whatever the heck I want. And I can put class on the lower level of things and I can put Netflix up there, or I can call my friends or all these different things. But it's like, okay, how are we fixing our focus on Jesus first in this time? Or are we fixing our focus on other things through that? Because until we fix our focus, he's never going to be that top priority.
That's right.
He's never going to go all the way up there until we get to that. And for me, I think one of the most important things when it comes to growth is intentionality. Like you cannot grow unless you're intentional about it. And exactly what you just said of we start with really good thoughts and really good intentions of this season's going to be great. This is going to be awesome. I love these things. I can't wait to grow deeper in Jesus. And then our day happens. And it's like, oh, I'm just going to sleep a little bit more.
Right.
Oh man, it's already this late. I'm just going to go ahead and get breakfast now and do all these things. And eventually, like you said, it's on the back burner and the back burner is just gone all of a sudden. And our time is completely missed with Jesus. And so questioning, okay, well, how am I being intentional about what I'm focusing on, what I'm doing with my time, and just being intentional about our growth and asking, okay, well, what do I need to be more intentional about? And who do I need to be intentional with too? Because even though we are by ourselves to some degree, most of us aren't completely alone in the house or apartment we're living in. And so asking, how can I also be intentional with those relationships? And how can I have good conversations with them and bring them kind of into this journey that I'm on with Jesus through this time?
And I think the best way to do that is to just follow what Jesus did. And so if you look through the life of Jesus, you look through the New Testament, I think two things about the gospel story really sticks out to me. One, Jesus always spent time with God. And he spent time alone with God. And I think that that's important. But then he also spent time with his boys. And so he did both. And so I think so many times we substitute the first thing of like spending time alone with God with, well, I'll just spend time with my friends and God. And so it's like we try and combine it, but there's something beautiful about and intentional about I'm going to spend time alone with God and I'm going to spend time with my friends with God. And so having that purposeful, I'm going to do just as Jesus did, where I'm going to retreat to a quiet place and I'm going to spend time, whether it's reading the word or just listening to God, letting him speak into different seasons of my life. And then I'm also going to be intentional about the relationships around me. One, in this season, just being intentional about having relationships, because that is going to be hard within of itself. You're going to be separated. And so it's going to take work of like, I need to text that person, or I need to FaceTime that person, or I need to follow up with this person, or do something so that I can interact with these people just on a regular humanistic basis. But then also, okay, how can I put Jesus into this too? If God is everything to me, it should overflow into every part of my life. And so now I'm not just hanging out with my friends, and we're not just watching Netflix, but it's like, hey, I was spending some time with God this morning, and this kind of came up on my quiet time. What do y'all think about that? And so it's realizing that you may have always had small group at 6:00 on Monday nights. That ain't gonna happen no more. But you can have small group when you're hanging out with your friends, and it doesn't have to be this structured, let's go through a study and start. And you definitely can, and we can encourage that, and maybe even spending time like this with your friends. But it's also like, I was reading this, I don't understand it. What do y'all think? And that starts that intentional conversation of, let me pick your brain on this, and we're also inviting God into the same situation. And it's living like Jesus did, where I'm living with my boys, I'm doing what he did, but I'm also spending time with God and making them work as one cohesive unit instead of these two separate entities.
Right. And I think what's also really cool when you do look at the life of Jesus, what he did, he consistently did all the time. No matter what was happening in his world, he always found time to spend time with the Father.
Yeah.
And even right before he was captured to be crucified, like what is his last act? He goes and he prays, and he goes and spends time with the Father through that. So his world is falling apart, and sometimes it can feel like right now our world is falling apart. Some of us, we have seniors and things like that in our year, that this is their senior year and their world's kind of falling apart. Like they don't get to enjoy the last semester here. And they're kind of like, what do I do? My world's totally different than I ever expected it to be. And I feel disappointed or feeling let down. Spending time with Jesus, and we see how Jesus did that whenever his world was still falling apart, and how he was able to then fix his focus on the Father, and he was able to do that because he was intentional throughout all of it. And so making sure that we're being intentional through these things. And something we mentioned earlier is not wanting to see like regression within our relationships with Jesus. And Paul talks about that a fair amount throughout the New Testament. There's also this quote within Hebrews 5:12 through 14, and it talks about the fact that they were at one point, they were at this spiritual high. They were awesome. They were super wise. They were making great decisions. And in fact, Paul expected them to be teaching others. He expected them to be at this level where they should be teaching. But what he finds whenever he's there is that that's not the case. The fact is that they've actually regressed, and that they're at a place where he compares them to babies again. And he compares them saying, you need milk. You can't even think of eating solid food anymore. I have to give you milk now. And so we want to make sure that we don't do that. We are intentional about, okay, I'm going to continuously dive into these hard subjects, dive into these scriptures that challenge me and push me and sharpen me. And help me fix my focus, because I don't want, when I go back to school next year and I go to Fuse and they're like, wait, what the heck? I don't know how to comprehend these things, because again, we're back at the stage of being like babies and needing milk and needing to be fed things. It's also a challenge for me personally to look at it and go, okay, well, how am I eating solid food and not having to be fed all the time, not having to have someone kind of cut my carrots up and go, here you go, choo-choo. But like actually going like, sweet, like I want to do this. I want to dive into this. And I want to have this time with Jesus be something that is sweet and is enjoyable and something that I grow and learn from in this time.
I think that we've got our work kind of cut out for us. There's a lot to be done, and there's, obviously, you still have to be a student. You still have to be taking care of the things that you need to take care of. But we just want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to be intentional with you guys and to equip you guys. And so we just want to challenge you guys and encourage you to keep fighting the good fight, to keep being intentional with your relationship with Jesus and your relationships with others. And we just want to know what's going on in your journeys. Please don't think that just because we're not meeting face to face that we don't want to know. And so let us know, whether it's on social media or through a text or FaceTime or however it is. Let us know how we can walk alongside you guys, how we can be intentional with you, and then let us know about all the things that God's doing with you. We're going to be dropping this content over and over, but we would love, as it's coming out, you just be like, hey, this is a picture of me and my group going through this study together, or hey, these are the kind of conversations that we had. Let us know how God is impacting you and influencing you in this time as you are being intentional with God and intentional with others.
Yeah, and even though ECU and the world seems to be kind of taking a break, Fuse is not stopping.
That's right.
Fuse is not pausing. And in fact, the things that we're working on for this next year and for the future, we're not stopping. We're full force going through those things. And so as we continue through the rest of this semester, there's a little video right after this that'll pop up of talking about the leadership team and the residency that we have going on for this next year. Applications for that are open, and that's still happening. That's still all going on. So please take a moment, watch that video. If you want to apply for either of those things, we'd love to hear from you. And as Liz said, we just want to hear from you throughout this whole thing. Reach out to us, message us, whatever it is. We would love to hear from you continuously as we go through all this. But we're really pumped to get to do these CoronaCasts with y'all.
Man.
It's a new creative thing for us, and we're pumped to just kind of explore what it looks like. We love you all.
See ya. In the fall of 2011, Fuse College Ministry launched on East Carolina University's campus with a vision of leading students to become fully devoted followers of Christ. Our desire was to be a Bible-driven community living on mission for Jesus. Since Fuse began, more than 3,000 students have been impacted by the gospel, with more than 200 students getting baptized and 245 students placing their faith in Jesus.
Students aren't just being impacted by Fuse, they're also helping lead it. We have amazing Fuse teams that volunteer each week to make it all happen. Each team is made up of students who have been impacted by all that Jesus is doing in Fuse. They are the ones who make Fuse happen. From our creative environments and worship teams to our welcome, prayer, and community teams, students are involved in every area, serving and using their gifts to pour into other students. Each of these Fuse teams is led by a member of our leadership team, a team made up of students who have already been a part of a Fuse team and want to help lead Fuse. These students have made a commitment to serve and lead their teams, pouring themselves back into the ministry that has helped impact them. It is this team of leaders that help Fuse drive its vision and heart for college students further than ever before.
Now, even though we have seen Jesus do amazing things here in Greenville, we know he is not finished yet. In North Carolina alone, there are over 1 million college students across 140 college campuses. Of these students, at least 90% are non-Christians with no connection to a church or a gospel-centered ministry. We want to go beyond what God is already doing here at ECU, and it's our passion to see college students who desperately need the gospel impacted by the love of Jesus, and it's our heart to go beyond.
It is from this passion we have created the Residency at Fuse, a 32-week leadership development program geared towards those who have a heart to see the kingdom grow on college campuses everywhere. Designed for recent graduates looking for their next step in ministry and practical hands-on experience, the Residency is focused on raising up leaders who will then go beyond, stretching them as individuals and pushing them as high-capacity leaders to the next level in their ministry careers. Our hope is that the Residency will equip, empower, and ignite the next generation of ministry leaders with the tools needed to go out and be powerful leaders in what God has called them to do.
While this is an audacious goal, we know that we serve a God who can do immeasurably more than all that we could ask or imagine. Fuse will passionately run towards what Jesus has called us to do, see college students everywhere impacted by the gospel of Jesus Christ. We cannot do that alone. We want you to be a part of that, from being on a Fuse team to helping lead the ministry as a member of our leadership team, or by choosing to say yes to going beyond and being a part of the Residency. So the question is, how will you say yes?